In this Kill Team Tactics video, we're going to be talking about TacOps and how best to try and score them. We're going to go through each of the individual archetypes, all 12 of the individual TacOps themselves, give some of the overview of how TacOps works, when you reveal it, how you score it, a bit of data about when best to maybe do these things and what sort of teams best to play with these TacOps. And then hopefully I'll give some little hints and tips as to how to maybe better score them and get more VP during the course of the game. Finally, I'm going to give a bit of my opinion on each of the TacOps as to which I think are best to hopefully make you choose the right TacOp, ultimately score more VP and have a more competitive and more fun gaming experience with the new edition of Kill Team. So let's get into it.
Hello and welcome to Turning Point Tactics, the competitive Kill Team 40k podcast and YouTube channel focused on giving you the strategies and tactics to seize initiative every turning point. I'm your host Ryan and I'm here to give you the tips and tricks to elevate every part of your Kill Team experience. If you enjoy this content and you want more, you can join our Patreon for as little as £3 a month. We'll get access to our Discord, patron priority questions, early access to videos including Kill Team bat reps, faction guides and much more. If that's not for you, you can support just by hitting like, subscribe and sharing these videos amongst the community of Kill Team enthusiasts local to you. With all that said, let's get into it.
Okay, so let's get started. We're going to start with security. So we'll put these to the side for now, and we're going to talk about the security deck. So first things first, there's 4 main archetypes, as you probably already know at this point. So you have Infiltration, Recon, Seek and Destroy, and Security. Each of these have 3 options within it. So you essentially have 12 TacOps that you need to learn. And what's going to be really important, I think, with Kill Team, the new edition of Kill Team, is actually learning all 12 of these TacOps, right? So there's a lot less faction TacOps than there used to be, but a lot of these are revealed now when people score them, and you have far less opportunity to deny them during a turning point. So learning what these TacOps are is really, really important to be able to make sure you can hopefully deny some points from your opponent. So let's start with security. Okay, so as I said, 3 TacOps. I'll read them out so everyone knows what we're dealing with. The first TacOp is Secure Center. You reveal this when you first score VP from this ops. This is what I'm talking about. So as soon as you're scoring VP, that's when you reveal it. And the VP is awarded as such. So at the end of each turning point after the first, so this is turning point 2, 3 and 4 only, if the total APL stat of friendly operatives within 3 inches of the center of the kill zone is greater than that of any operatives, you're going to score a VP. If the total APL stat of friendly operatives on the center line, but more than 3 inches from the center of the kill zone is greater than that of any operatives, you score 1 VP. So, okay, I'm just going to read through the rest of them, but you're seeing the theme here, so you can potentially score this without your opponent having the knowledge that you're trying to score this. They'll just have to see where you're positioning, and the 2 bits that are going to give it away are these 2 bits here. So that's the first one for security. The second one is Take Ground. So again, reveal when you first score VP from this op. This is a similar op to the Seize Ground, but rather than being scored at the end of the game, you're now scoring it during the game, which is much better. So at the end of each turning point after the first, in Killzone Volcus, in Killzone Galadark, and any other Killzone. So there's 3 separate ways of scoring this, just so you're aware, but they're all very similar when it comes to it. So let's just run through them. In Killzone Volcus, if friendly operatives control any stronghold terrain features within your opponent's territory, you score 2 VP. For each ruin, large or small terrain feature within your opponent's territory that friendly operatives control, you score 1 VP. So straight away you're seeing that if you can essentially take the big building in your opponent's half, you're going to be getting 2 VP. Or if you can control 2 ruins, you can potentially score more on that. You can get 2 VP. But note, it's within your opponent's territory, so that's their half of the board. In Killzone Galadark, for each access point that's on the center line or within your opponent's territory that friendly operatives control, you score 1 VP. In any other Killzone, for each terrain feature with heavy terrain within your opponent's territory that friendly operatives control, you score 1 VP. So, what I will say is I think this is actually slightly harder on Volcus than it is on the other ones, although if you can get and control the stronghold, then you're going to get an easy 2 VP. But these ones are slightly easier, I think, depending upon the map and the layout. So this is very map dependent and very side dependent of which side of the board you get, so you need to think about that as you go through. But either way, you can only ever score a maximum of 2 VP from this op per turning point. And an operative contests a stronghold terrain feature, it's wholly within. an operative can test all of the terrain features within their control range or while underneath the terrain features vantage terrain. Free operatives control each such terrain feature if the total APL stat of those testing it is greater than that of any operatives. So again, you need to get into that stronghold to be able to do it. And a lot of people are taking barbed wire and those sorts of things these days, makes this much harder to achieve. All right, the final security TacOp, contain. So again, condition when you first score VP from this op. So at the end of each turning point after the first, if there are no enemy operatives wholly within your territory, you score 1 VP. If there are no enemy operatives wholly within 6 inches of your drop zone, you score 1 VP. So nice and simple conditions, and quite difficult for your opponent to necessarily predict that you have based on your models, but potentially how you're targeting stuff. So out of these, I'm going to talk about which ones I think are best, and I actually think all three are good. All right, I'm going to start with that. I think all three are good in their own ways. I think this is take ground is map dependent and a bit more situational on what the board looks like, but on certain boards, this could be really, really good, like Chownath or anything with a lot of heavy terrain that you think you can easily get to. Really good pick. You're probably getting a minimum of 1 VP a turn, but more like 2 VP, so good to go for that one. For elite players, I think you're going to prefer contain over secure center line. The only reason I say that is the two conditions on secure center are you can't be achieving them both at the same time, right? So you're either on the center line or you're within 3 inches of the center of the board. So you need to have 2 operatives to be able to achieve both of these things. Now, that's not necessarily too hard to achieve because you've got 3 APL models, but usually you're going to see that like if you're this is the most choreographed one I would suggest if you're putting a model measuring that it's within range of the center, making sure that there's someone on the center line. This is more choreographed, and therefore they're going to either target those models and try and kill them, or they're going to place models on center line or in the center to be able to deny you these points. So a little bit harder to score on this one. And then contain, I think, is one of the easiest ones to achieve generically because it's going to let you do what you want to do, which is essentially prioritize killing your opponent's models, to make sure that you can score these 2 bits. And your opponent doesn't necessarily know you're going for this, so there's a little bit of mind games here because you might want to start measuring people to the center line, measuring people to the center of the board, because it's going to be useful for both of these. But what I will say is, if you have someone that's on the center line, they're not wholly within your opponent's territory. So your opponent can't deny this one and deny this at the same time. So they need to make a decision between the two as to what they're going to do. So that's a really interesting way of doing it. So there's a lot of options within security here. The thing that I think makes security really strong is it's not requiring you to use any APL, right? So other than, I guess, contain for killing people, but that's like an optional thing. And you're going to be using that to kill people anyway. But there's no randomness involved in this. There's no actions required or anything like that. This is just use your APL to do killing and damage your opponent, and the TacOp will take care of itself. And you're probably going to, I would suggest, most of the time on Turning Point 2, you're going to score 2 VP from these TacOps because your opponent's going to find it hard to predict which one you're doing. Turning Point 3, they'll probably deny you 1. Like that's what I would expect, is them to be able to say, right, I know you're trying to do secure center, so I'm going to move someone into the center, I'm going to put someone in the center line, I'm going to deny you this point. So you're only getting 1 VP on Turning Point 3, but Turning Point 4, again, they're probably running out of models because you're using all your APL to kill stuff and do damage. So now you're probably able to try and get 2 VP back on these. So usually, I would say a lot of these ones, you're going to be scoring about 5 VP, which for primary op purposes, as we all know, is the perfect amount to be getting to ensure that you maximise your score, right? So you'd be getting those 3 points on those primary op because you want to be scoring 5. 5 is really, really big, and this gives you a good opportunity to be able to do it. So the fact that it's like the Turning Point 2 is like a blind deal, and your opponent has to try and guess which of these you're trying to do, and if they try and do all of them, they're going to potentially harm themselves because, well, let's say that they go, right, I'm going to put a model on the center line to deny you, or maybe 2 models on center lines to deny you. I'm going to put someone, over the halfway line to deny you a point on this, and I'm going to try and put people next to buildings. Like, wow, that's like they're probably putting a lot of their models way far forwards that then you can probably kill and punish the next turn because they'll be out of positioning. So something to think about. This kind of forces your opponent forwards. Look at what sort of team your opponent has. If they have a slow team that's, not wanting to move close to you, they're not a melee horde or anything like that, then Contain's probably your friend. If it's a shooting team. If it's a melee team, then maybe Secure Center's better for you. And you can also think about taking the off pick if the map is correct for it for take ground. So I guess when I say the map's correct for it, what I'm saying is depending on which of these you're playing, you really need to look at the three options, count up how much heavy you can realistically get or access points you can realistically get, and then think, is that going to be achievable? But you have to get 2 a turn, right? So, or you have to get into a stronghold, but from my experience of this edition so far, getting into your opponent's stronghold can be pretty tough, particularly if they start using razor wire, they start using barricades, they're going to have people in the strongholds. That's probably where one of their objectives are as well. So you're now talking about being on their home objective, in their territory. It's usually quite far away. You've had to pay sort of movement tax to get there. You probably aren't achieving that on turning point 2. You probably aren't achieving that on turning point 3 unless the game's going really well for you. So it's probably a turning point 4 way of scoring. So you'd have to be looking to see how you're going to get those ruins, either large or small, on turning points 2 and 3. But potentially there's an option there to skew people's perception of what you're trying to do. So if you select the correct ruins. So security overall, they're all good. I love the fact that you're going to be scoring it after you revealing it after you score. So really for your opponent, the first half of the game, they have no idea what your game plan is. All right, so you have two turning points of free reign where they don't know what your TacOp is. And on turning point 3, then they're into the how do I deny one of these. So make sure you don't telegraph what you're trying to do. I would say you definitely want to try and kill people, but you want to make sure you leave enough heavy hitters to kill the stuff that's made its way into your half. Think about how if you're playing Contain, you could use barricades, you could use razor wire and that sort of stuff as well. And think about how you can force people back. Because again, one of the key points here is they have to be wholly within. So if you have a razor wire within your territory that's stopping them from getting their base wholly into your territory, that's done the job, right? So to consider that. And then for Secure Center, again, a bit more terrain dependent, I'd suggest. This is the most terrain dependent. This is the next one, because if you think there's a big blob of heavy in the middle and you've got loads of guys that are really durable and can just sit there and tank it, this is going to be the one for you. But you also then have to have that EPL win. So just to be considering. Again, my point about elites, just remember you can't be doing both of these points with a single model. So with only 6 models on the board, consider, do you really want to be trying to achieve these 2 things? So I'd say that this is probably the easiest one to achieve. Then the next easiest is actually probably take ground. And then after that, it's Secure Center. So that's the priority. But look at the terrain and see how it goes. I think at the end of the day, all 3 are good picks. So if you're taking security, I don't think you're going to be in a bad place necessarily when it comes to scoring TacOps, which therefore means they're good for primary ops, right? So main thing you want to consider for your game plan is, how do I score 5 points on these? If you can get the 6th point, that's absolutely ideal. But generally, turning point 2, you want to be nailing that, getting 2 points. So it gives you 2 more opportunities to get 2 points, and then it should be an easy opportunity to get 1 point for the rest of it. I'll be very surprised on Contain if you don't get a minimum of 3. This last one, where they're in a 6-inch drop zone, is really hard for them to be able to do and survive against a lot of teams, unless you're not very killy. If you're not very killy, then don't do this. If you can't kill stuff, go for the other 2. But if you can kill stuff, this is pretty good, and it's going to force your opponent to be more aggressive, come to you, and then that's potentially where you can do more damage. So those are my thoughts on security TacOps. What do you guys think about security? I mean, have you played many games with them yet? I think, as I said, I think they're probably, well, we'll rank them at the end, but I think these guys are probably up at the top. But let me know what your experience has been. Maybe you've got some tips and tricks that you can share that you think is slightly different to what I've just talked about for security. All right, so next up, we're talking Seek and Destroy. So Seek and Destroy has kind of changed quite a lot over the iterations of the game. So when it first came out, it used to be pretty garbage. It really wasn't very good. It was one of the main reasons I think Blooded struggled, was the fact they had really bad TacOps. Now, Seek and Destroy has actually improved quite a lot in the last edition, and now it's kind of like a mixed bag. Weirdly, I think Seek and Destroy plays really well for elites, and it doesn't play quite so well for any of your hordes. So I want to try and quantify that a little bit, just so people can understand where I'm getting at with that. So what I'll do first, I'll just overview what these all do, and then explain why I think elite players probably really enjoy these. Horde players probably want to be looking towards some of the other options that are out there, because there's some bits in here that I don't think necessarily jive too well with hordes versus elites. So let's start with Overrun as the first TacOps. So again, 3 options. First one being Overrun. So as you saw with security, you're revealing this as soon as you're scoring VP from it, right? So once per turning point after the first, if an enemy operative is incapacitated by a friendly operative, and that friendly operative is whole within your opponent's territory, when it does so, you score 1 VP. So this is one of the easiest possible things to achieve, I think, this first condition. If you're not achieving that during the game, well, you're probably having a terrible game. This is good. But, well, I'll come on to playing against elites in a second. And then at the end of each turning point after the first, if the total APL stat of friendly operatives that both fulfill the above condition, that turning point, regardless if you score in the VP, and are still holding your opponent's territory is 3 or more, you can score 1 VP. So what this is saying is, right, is like, hey, can you get into your opponent's half, kill someone, and then survive, right? But you need to have 3 APL to be able to do that. And that's why I think it really favors elites. So killing an elite this first half is harder to do. There's only 6 elites on the board, right? So and they're all pretty durable at the moment. So killing an elite is much harder to achieve if you're a horde team. And then, not just that, but then surviving after having killed that elite is even harder still, right? So now you're trying to survive, and you have 2 options to achieve this, right? Either you're going to APL buff them, so like Kazakin are quite good for this, because you can essentially, like at the end of the turning point, move a melter gunner out, hopefully kill someone, and then use your comms to APL buff the melter gunner post-kill. Suddenly, boom, boom, you score both points, and you're good to go. But for elites, nascently, they've just got 3 APL. So they're going to just do that. And they're more durable, so they're going to go forwards, kill someone, probably, because elites are pretty killy. A lot of them like to move forwards anyway. They're going to kill someone, they're going to score you 1 point. They're probably hanging around. You don't have to worry about APL buffing them. You don't have to do any shenanigans to be able to get them out there. They're just going to be giving you that extra point. So Overrun, really good. I think I want to say it's a guaranteed 3 VP, but it's pretty much a guaranteed 3 VP. For your opponent to deny you this, they have to basically be running forwards into your half and into your territory. And even then, like, you can just, if you're a shooty team, move into your opponent's territory and shoot back, and still achieve it. So hard to deny. You're probably getting 3 VP minimum, I'd suggest, and then you need to think about how you're going to get the extra 2 VP that you need for this second condition, because that's a little bit harder to achieve unless you're elites, where this second condition is actually very easy to achieve. So elites love this, I think, and you'll struggle not to score 5 points as an elite on this, I would suggest. The only time I can see you not is just by on turning point 4 is your weakened models getting picked up too quickly and dying, potentially. So you'll just be scoring 5. Okay, next TacOp then is Champion. So again, you're revealing this as when you select your champion, not when you score, all right? So you're telegraphing straight away what you're going to do. That means that there's a level of initiative dependence that's sat on this. So if you're a team that has initiative manipulation, you're going to be better at doing this. So just consider that going forwards. And the next bit is, as a strategic gambit, in each turning point after the first, you can select 1 friendly operative to be your champion for the turning point. You're obviously always going to select someone It'd be crazy for you not to. So fine. So now you have to essentially put all your eggs for that turning point in a basket and choose what that's going to be. And then you get to score in the following way. So in each turning point after the first, whenever your champion incapacitates any operative, you score 1 VP or 2 VP if any operative had a wound stat of 12 or more. In either case, maximum 2 VP per turning point. So you can't kill 2 Marines with a Marine and score 4 VP or anything like that. So, okay, few thoughts on this. So this is initiative dependent, right? So like if you have initiative, this is immediately better because you're going to get to the first activation. Your champion's probably going to get a kill, and that's great. Remember how durable elites are, and like if they're turning off piercing and they have just a scratch and they have a 2-up save and all that sort of good stuff, there's a high chance your melt gun probably actually isn't going to kill them. So like, just be aware that you getting the kill against a 12-wing model and getting or greater than 12-wing model and getting immediately TVP is unlikely. But firstly, initiative dependent. Secondly, you're putting all your eggs in one basket and essentially, well, potentially one dice roll or sets of dice rolls, and then they can be killed. And then you're also reliant on your opponent's models dying and them not rolling good saves and that sort of stuff. Elites generally like this, I would suggest, more than the non-elite teams. Reason being, firstly, your champion is more durable, so for your enemy to move out and just like nuke your champion, far harder to do, right? So they're less likely to be able to pick up a kill against your champion. Secondly, because you can shoot twice, fight twice, and counteract to be able to potentially get more kills, and you're more likely to be able to achieve that, you can have more opportunities to pick up kills against enemy operatives, or you can fight twice against a tough operative or whatever, which just means that the variance on your dice roll is going to be significantly less. All right, so elites are liking this a lot more than the hordes. Hordes, you're really not liking this, in my opinion, unless you're very reliable on initiative, you have models that can double kill quite easily, and you're durable enough to sort of hang around like afterwards, I would suggest. So, or to take an initial blow if you lose it. So I'm trying to think what sort of teams would be good for this. Maybe Breed Brothers if there's like a good blast opportunity, but you then want to be sinking that CP into making sure that you get the hits and the kills. So you want essentially a high reliability initiative team that's durable and does reliably good damage, which can double kill to be good at this. So if you can do all those things in your team, and you're like, yep, I'm not initiative dependent. I don't mind about initiative. If I lose initiative, I'm durable enough to survive. That's the other option, I guess, of that one. I am reliable at killing stuff, and I can double kill quite easily. Champion's the one for you. Nailed it. Let's move on to the next one, though. Okay, so we're into Storm objectives. So reveal this when you first score VP from this op. So interestingly, if you're against a team, I know everyone has 2 faction TacOps now, but you will know straight away if they're not playing champion because they haven't done it at the start for Seek and Destroy, just so you're aware. So they're scoring at the end. Anyway, so when you first score VP, so at the end of each friendly operative's activation, if it controls an objective marker that enemy operatives controlled at the start of that activation, or that's whole within your opponent's territory, and that objective marker is not contested by enemy operatives, that objective marker is stormed by friendly operatives this turning point. Woof, that's a hefty bit of text. Okay, how do you get VP then? Once per turning point after the first, if an objective marker is stormed by friendly operatives this turning point, you score 1 VP. At the end of each turning point after the first, if friendly operatives control an objective marker that was stormed by friendly operatives this turning point, you score 1 VP. All right, so thoughts on this? It's kind of complicated, right? So the way that I'm gonna think about this is like mission dependent. So the crit op that you're playing will probably determine if storm objectives is good or bad. And so the reason I say that is, let's say you're playing on something like loot, like the chances on turning point 1 of someone putting a model onto that middle objective in loot is significantly higher, right? So if you're playing on loot, they probably go, well, I don't want to just give you a free objective tap to force me 2-1 on crit ops on turning point 2. So I want to force you to kill someone first. So I'll put someone on it, or like I'll put models so that it's contested is probably the main thing, and therefore this has more validity. But if you're playing like secure or any other mission which essentially is scored at the end of the turning point, then on turning point like 1, I don't really see why anyone's putting models on objectives that they don't need to, right? Like they don't need to do this. So for turning point 2, the way you're scoring points is probably by getting to your opponent's home objective, all right? So that's something to consider. You need to be positioning yourself in turning point 1 so that in turning point 2, you can reach your opponent's objective in their territory and take it. Now, interestingly, on like ITD and these sorts of game modes, that's actually a little bit easier to achieve because of the way the ones are laid out. On Volcus, I think this is really hard to do, but you need to look at the map and you need to think, right, how far away realistically is my opponent's like home objective in their territory? And then think to yourself, okay, so if it's that far away, do I have the movement potential to get to it? Do I have safe staging places, turning point 1, to stage to be able to threaten it, right? Because that's what you need to be able to do. And then note that to get the second VP, you need to survive. So again, you probably want to be durable. So for Stormhawk objectives, I'm thinking this is kind of like map dependent, for one. It's like if you're faster and you're more mobile, it's better. If you have higher APL or you have the ability to contest objectives better, I'm thinking like banner, like icon bearers, banners and that sort of stuff, or Phobos Terror, those sorts of abilities where you can make it harder for objectives. Phobos don't have the Seek and Destroy, but like if you can make it harder for people to be able to contest objectives, then this is going to be better for you because you're more likely to be able to take it from someone. But yeah, I think this is harder to achieve. So my sort of summary on Seek and Destroy, Overrun, pretty much, I want to say it's an auto pick, but it's a lot easier to achieve than these two. You do need to get some kills with it, but like anyone on your team can achieve those kills. And if they have, they can then be the one that survives and does it. This is better for elites, like way better for elites. But if you have long range comms, you can consider that an option to be able to use. Additionally, there's quite a high chance that if you're like a melee team, you're going to be moving forwards and killing people in their territory anyway, and you're probably going to have like 4 APL of models in their territory, so that's not an option there. Champion is probably my sort of like next favourite one. Again, like, wow, I don't know, it's between these two. If the map's favourable, if you have like ITD, it's probably this one, right? Like if you've got a good ITD map where you can get to the home objective on turning point 2 and take it and hold it, and you have the durability to do that, then this is the one to go for, and then Champion after that. Champion's the most dice reliant, so I talked it all through. It has a lot more risk than the others probably have. So just be aware of that as you go through on that one. So if I was to prioritize these, I'm pretty much going to say always take Overrun. These two are like way more conditionally based. Generically, this is a lot weaker than security, especially if you're not an elite player. If you're an elite player, Overrun's pretty good. You can probably take that most games, and you'll be annoyed. Like you're getting like a minimum of 3, and you'll be annoyed if you get less than 5. I think if you're an elite player, whereas these ones are going to be much harder to achieve, and might not necessarily have the same synergy of what you want to do as well. So. Those are my thoughts when it comes to Seek and Destroy. What's your thoughts? What do you guys experience running Seek and Destroy? Have I missed the mark, or is that pretty much aligned with how you guys have been seeing Seek and Destroy working as well? Alrighty, so next up we'll go into Recon. This is kind of the fall for grace for Recon. Well, let's say that, like, they're still pretty good. But I don't think that they are as dominant as they used to be. I think these are much harder to achieve than potentially what it used to be. Like recover item now scores really like in a really interesting way. It's like one of the highest risk TacOps, I think, that lets you potentially win big. Confirm kill, on paper, you think it's going to be really easy, and then in reality, it actually turns out to be much harder to achieve. And plant beacons is a significant APL SAP, because you need to be spending 2 APL a turn, so 6 APL total over the course of the game to be able to maximize this, which is a significant amount of APL. So let's start with recover items, because recover item used to be the best TacOps, one of the best TacOps in the game for sort of free TVP. And I'll talk you through how it's now changed. So you need to reveal this at the start of the set operative step before equipment is set up. So straight away, there is an element here of you're going to be placing down these tokens. I'll talk to you through how you place them down, and then your opponent is going to get to place equipment to maybe make that harder for you to achieve. There's some limitations on what they can and can't do, but just to be aware of that's the way this works. Okay, so when revealed, your opponent places one of your item mission markers on the center line and one within 2 inches of your territory. So this is 2 markers. This line here can get people really confused. This is 2 markers your opponent is placing. The first one has to be on the center line of the board, and the second one has to be within 2 inches of your territory. So your opponent's placing 2. You're then placing 1 marker, and you place it more than 6 inches from your territory. So all of these markers are in your opponent's half. All right, so it's all in your opponent's side of the board. One of them is going to be 6 inches away, one of them is going to be 2 inches away, and one of them is going to be on the centre line somewhere. So if you're a slow team, danger straight away. In all cases, your item mission markers must be more than 2 inches from other markers, including other item mission markers. Your operatives can perform pickup marker action on your mission markers after the first turning point. So there's no more rush forwards, pick up your markers, score early, anything like that. Can't be done. This is the same as everything else. Turning point 2, 3, and 4 game for you to play. And key here as well is they have to be more than 2 inches from other markers. So that you can, in this instance, be on both the primary objective and a recover item token if your opponent places them in a way which allows that to happen. But your opponent probably has the ability to control that. You might be able to, depending upon where your 6 inches is, get 1, but most of the objectives won't allow that. So your opponent's unlikely to give you the ability to sit on 2. Maybe they will, but unlikely to be able to do it. Okay, victory points then. At the end of the 4th turning point, for each of your item markers that both the pickup marker action has been performed upon and friendly operatives control, you score 2 VP. Note that it's not a requirement to be carrying those markers, but each of them must have been carried by friendly operatives at some point during the battle. So, okay, so this is why I said it's like high risk, because all 6 of your VP are in the last turning point, right? So 4th turning point, you can now score the points. You need to, at some point during turning point 2, 3, or 4, you need to have done the pickup marker action. So fine, go within 1 inch of the marker, spend an AP, pick up that marker, and then you're going to be able to score these points. But you also need to control it. So this is where I get a bit worried, because from my experience, getting to the markers is one thing. Having the spare APL to perform a pickup marker is a second thing. And then actually keeping that model alive and keeping that marker controlled at the end of the game is where it can get really difficult. So just be aware, you're spending 3 APL during the game to make this happen, minimum, to be able to max score. Sure, you can score just 1 or 2 of these, fine. But to max score, you have to spend 3 APL during the game, and you need to be able to control it at the end. One of the other downsides of recover items, it is kind of like an all-in if you're doing a primary op, right? So there isn't you can't score a 3 and you can't score a 5. So you're either getting your 2, 4, or 6. So this has a high risk of it swings more, but you can potentially swing really big at the end of the game. So it's a bit of a risk if you're going for this for your primary op. Just be aware of, there's some risk there. When it comes to where you want to place your stuff, I don't really have too much tactics that I can say just like blandly, I would say you can either, like, there's two logics. You can put them all in one place and you can just focus a whole load of people down one flank, or you can spread them out and force your opponents to spread out, but your opponent gets to determine 2 of 3, so really that's going to be determined by your opponent, and you're just kind of going to see where it ends up at the end. So part of this might be, for you anyway, quite map dependent. Now, again, actually on Into the Dark, I would say that there is some options here, because on some of them, the centre line is not actually that much, so you can guarantee that there's going to be one that you're going to easily be able to reach, and then you know where roughly these other ones are going to be. So just something to be aware of. But a bit high risk, this one. All right. Next, let's talk through confirmed kill. So you reveal this the first time an enemy operative is incapacitated. Whenever an enemy operative is incapacitated, before it's moved from the kill zone, place one of your confirmed kill mission markers within its control range, so within 1 inch of where you've killed it from. At the end of each turning point after the first, if a friendly operative controls one of your confirmed kill mission markers, that marker is not contested by enemy operatives, and no enemy operatives are within the friendly operative's control range, you can remove that mission marker and score 1 VP or 2 VP if it was placed on an enemy operative with a wound stat of 12 or more. You can score a maximum of 2 VP from this op per turning point. Okay, so like hypothetically, this sounds quite good, right? Because you're like, right, I need to kill people, stand on their bodies, and I score points. Yeah, that's great. Like, if we can compare it to Overrun, where you just kill someone, you score VP straight away, not quite as good, right? But fine, like you can get some points. But you're talking here about, if you're against a horde team that's not 12 wounds or more, killing at least 2 models a turn, and then having your models sit on those models' dead bodies to be able to collect them, and your opponent not contesting that. And the easiest way for them to contest that, they can just charge you, right? Because if you have an enemy operative within your control range, you can't score this. So you can shut down people's scoring of this so easily by just charging the model that got the kill, and that model has to sit on the dead body. And usually, if you were able to reach that with one of your friendly models earlier, it's probably within range of a charge of one of your other models. If that makes sense. Like, so anyway, what I'm getting at is this is actually really easy to deny from your opponent's point of view, and it then means that you're going to be leaving a bunch of models in potentially quite exposed positions to try and score points. So I feel like confirmed kill is a bit of a trap. I think what will happen is you'll end up with loads of confirmed kill markers all over the board, and not many of your own models actually collecting them, because you've already spent your APL, you've already moved out, you've shot them, now you have to get someone else to move out and sit on it, and you're not then killing other people, etc., etc. So not necessarily APL efficient in that sense, but I guess if you're a melee team, this has a bit of, play, because you are going to be within engagement range of those tokens anyway. So if you're a melee team, you can be like, yep, charge, fight, I'm going to sit there, so this is better. But for a lot of other teams, if that's not your thing, this probably hurts. And then also, if you're a melee team, people charging you, they probably don't want to do that, so that's where it plays into it. So confirmed kill for melee teams, I can see it. It's better than for shooting teams. I'm just going to say, just be cautious of taking this straight off, because you think it's like, oh, I'm killing people, that's going to be great. I think actually it's a little bit harder to achieve than you necessarily first think. All right. Third, plant beacons. The reveal. The first time a friendly operative performs a plant beacon action. Nice. We like this because you're going to find out in a second, you are going to score VP as soon as you reveal it. And actually, to get some points, very easy to do. So, the mission action itself then, plant beacon. So place your beacon mission markers within the active operative's control range, more than 4 inches from your drop zone, more than 6 inches from other beacon mission markers, with no part of it underneath vantage terrain. An operative cannot perform this action during the first turning point, while within a control range of the operative, or during an activation in which it was set up, so you can't like teleport forwards and plant them. Victory points then. Once per turning point after the first, whenever one of your beacon mission markers is placed wholly within your territory, you score 1 VP. once per turning point after the first. Whenever one of your beacon mission markers is placed wholly within your opponent's territory, you score 1 VP. So, first thing you're noticing, these two things cannot be both the same, right? So you can't place a beacon in your opponent's territory and score 2 VP from both of these things. So you're placing 2 beacons at turning point to be able to maximize your score. So that means turning point 2, 2 beacons, turning point 3, 2 beacons, turning point 4, 2 beacons. And you'll see that you're going to run out of space somewhat quickly. What I will say is that it can be very easy, particularly if you're like a team that's got like a native 3 APL or 3 mission actions or anything like that. It can be very easy for you to score like 3 VP on this, right? So you can go, all right, I'm going to place a beacon on my far left, a beacon on my far right, and a beacon in the middle of my terrain and in my territory. They're going to be spread out because that's enough distance between them. And now I've scored enough. Like I get 3 VP, right? So that's kind of a cool like way to guarantee some VP. But to score the next bit of VP, and particularly again, like I'm going to keep saying this, you really want to be getting 5 VP for these sorts of things. That makes it like optimal for primary ops. So to get to 5 VP, you need to be going into your opponent's territory, and you need to be placing these markers. Now, you can place them like just over your like opponent's territory line, but like just be aware that means that you're spending a lot of APL and models that are just sort of sitting in the mid board to be able to do it. I think it's like arguably one of the better ones out of the Recon ups, because I don't necessarily like the recover item, like you're all in for a recover item or not. This is like you're probably going to get a very easy 3. I can see you getting 4 actually quite easy, because one of your guys that are placing these things down are going to be able to move up and do it. And any team that has like 3 mission actions or something similar will probably quite like this. So, yeah, pros and cons. But it's APL intensive, so just be aware of that. It is going to cost you a lot of APL, at minimum 6, right, to maximize your score. But you don't have to go too far forwards to be able to achieve all of this sort of like all of the criteria. So you really want to have your so I mean, like, again, just to be aware. So your drop zone is 3 inches, right? So it has to be more than 4 inches from your drop zone. The marker itself is about 1 inch. So you're looking at right there, 8 inches forwards is like the far extent of your like token. So then to be 6 inches beyond that, you're now looking at 14 inches. The board itself is usually 11 inches to the like halfway line, just for awareness. So what you're looking at is essentially placing these markers 3 inches beyond the halfway line. You might be able to, with angles, get it less than that, but just for awareness, that's kind of where you're looking to be able to reach for your mission planning of how far forward do I need to be able to go. Roughly 3 inches beyond the halfway line is what you're looking at to achieve this, which is achievable for a lot of teams, you know. So it's achievable. I think the first 3 points are easy. The last 3 though are quite hard. Recover items is like big swings, right? So like if you can table your opponent, this is like free VP because you can rush all over the place and get stuff. And confirm kill is I don't know, like I might be wrong on this, but some people are going to tell me it's amazing, but I've just seen people struggle to achieve scores on this. I see people struggle to achieve scores on this. I think you get like a mediocre score on this. So I don't think Recon is what it used to be. I think it's now a little bit harder to achieve. And I think personally, I'm putting it behind both Seek and Destroy and Security. Security if you're elites. Seek and Destroy if you're elites. Maybe it's like this if you're not elites, probably. Like if you're not elites, I'd say you could probably take your plant beacons and maybe recover items to get some points. But if you're elites, yeah, Seek and Destroy would be better. So that's kind of where I'm at with those, and we'll go into Infiltration next. Okay, so let's talk about the most complicated, in my opinion. is it the weakest? I don't know, probably. But this is Infiltration TacOps. So there's a way of trying to do some subtly weird things that can be good, I guess. Well, I don't know, but I just feel like a lot of them are aren't necessarily. What's the best way of describing it? Like that they're not a concurrent objective, so they're kind of like they're going against what you're trying to do with the game. So, for instance, if you're doing implant, you don't want to be killing people. If you're doing like wiretap, again, you kind of don't want to be killing people. And surveillance, you kind of want to like spend APL to do surveillance, but then move back and hide and try and keep models alive. So it's a bit of a weird one. I'll talk you through them though. So I personally think if you're like new to the game, I probably would not be looking at Infiltration straight away. I'd play some of the other ones that these are a little bit harder to score. And I think you have to have a real good game plan when it comes to like using these. I will talk about implant first because I think this has like a really nice change which I quite like, and can have a sort of weird asymmetry in the way in which you play, which can work out quite well. This is really good against durable teams that like don't kill very well, or against any team that doesn't kill very well. This is good against, and any team that's very, very durable, so you're unlikely to kill them, is also good against. So. But you are going to be trading off some of your damage. All right, so let's get into it. You're going to reveal this when you first score VP from this op. So again, this is hidden. People don't know what you're trying to do until you suddenly score it, which is quite useful. So whenever a friendly operative is fighting, when you would resolve an attack dice, you could implant the enemy operative instead of either striking or blocking. Key part here, fighting, not retaliating, right? So you have to be the aggressor. You can't be defensively implanting people. Good to know. Additionally, whenever a friendly operative is shooting an enemy operative within 6 inches of it, when you would resolve an attack dice, you can implant the enemy operative instead of inflicting damage with that dice. Each operative can only be implanted once and cannot be implanted during the first turning point. Cool. So, this is a nice addition, I think. So, if you wanted to just shoot people, you can use some of your attack dice, you can use some of your damage to instead implant people, and it's a way for you to score VP. But note, there's no defensive implants now. So like someone charges you and you go, I'm happy for him to die, I'm just going to implant on the way out, so I score some VP. Not a thing. You have to be the aggressor in the situation here. Okay, VP then. So once per turning point after the first, if you implant an operative, you score 1 VP. Nice and easy. So immediately I'm going to say pretty easy as a route for you to be able to score 3 VP. You're probably going to be doing at least some shoot actions and some fight actions during a turning point to be able to achieve this first condition. But note that you might be in a situation where now you're not going to kill that enemy operative, so you might be taking more damage as a result because you're choosing to score VP and attack op instead, just for awareness. At the end of each turning point after the first, if an implant... I always find this amusing because like you can't implant someone during the first turning point, so it's kind of like irrelevant. But anyway, at the end of each turning point after the first, if any implanted enemy operatives are in a kill zone, you score 1 VP. So what this is saying is you want to implant them, and then you want to let them live. So the benefit of this second point is if you implant like the entire enemy team somehow on turning point 2, I don't know how you do that, but let's say you theoretically did, you can still be scoring VP, but you still, so that's a way for you to get VP. But note again, you do need to be doing the implant action to get the first VP. All right, so each turning point you need to be doing these implants. I would suggest not doing too many because you're reducing your ability to do it in future, and you're also reducing or increasing how much damage your opponent's going to be doing to you because you want to be keeping these guys alive. So theoretically, just for awareness, you could implant one person at the back, like if you had like a long shot that someone's, left someone that exposed, whatever it's going to be, you could potentially implant them on turning point 2, like their comms operative at the back of the board, and then just leave them and just go, cool, I'm now farming VP off you the whole game. Like, unless you come in up here and suicide me, then I'm gonna farm that VP. So that's the way that I would try and score this second point, is find someone that does like no damage and you don't really care about, and just let them live. And then for this top one, do this each turning point. So kind of cool, because it means that you can essentially do this 3 times and score this and max this. So you only really need to do the implant action 3 times, which is less than, well, I guess arguably it was not less than it was before, but yeah, for your 6 VP, this is probably quite good. I think it's one of the better ones when it comes to infiltration, but we'll talk to the other 2 now. But yeah, so that's my take on it. Is my opinion is find someone that's weak, as in doesn't do much damage, implant them and just let them live, and then make sure you implant other people going forwards, or make sure you always have someone to be able to get both points of this, right? Because again, you want to be getting your 5 VP minimum. I think this is probably quite doable for you to get quite high scores on VP. People usually seem to do it all right. It might be at the cost and sacrifice of your kill grade, and it might be at the cost and sacrifice for your crit op and your own team durability, just for your awareness. Wiretap. All right, this is a bit of a weird one, so I'll read it out and then we can talk through why I think it's weird. So the first time for an operative performs a wiretap action. Okay, what's a wiretap action? Place one of your wiretap mission markers within the active operative's control range in the ready step of the next strategy phase. Remove that marker. This is the bit that hurts, but sure. An operative cannot perform this action during the first turning point while within control range of any operative during an activation in which it was set up, or if a friendly operative always performs action during the turning point. So you can only have one of these on the board at any one time, and it's going to be removed each turn. This is the bit that sucks. Okay, so once per turning point after the first, whenever any operative starts or ends an action within 2 inches of a wiretap mission marker, you score 1 VP. Nice and easy. At the end of each turning point after the first, if an enemy operative with an engage order or within 2 inches of a wiretap mission marker, you score 1 VP. So the best way I can see wiretap being used, in my opinion, is you're going to just basically move on to the middle objective with someone, throw a wiretap marker down, and then if your opponent comes onto that objective to try and take it from you, you're going to score 2 VP if their model was left alive. So that's kind of it. But note that you're now got a guy on the center objective on engage that you're not wanting to kill, because now you're trying to score your TacOp, and you have to do this each turn. So you're going to be throwing these models into the middle to be placing these wiretaps, which again is APL that's being spent. So minimum 3 APL to max this. But it's you're going to be doing this, and if your opponent really wanted to, just to be a mean person, they could just not move within range of your wiretap marker and deny you all points. The best case scenario is they already have someone on the center objective. You move up, you place your wiretap marker. As soon as they activate, you're going to score 1. If they stay and hang around, you score a second one. That sort of thing. Cool. But yeah, kind of like I don't know. I feel like you're going to end up with opponents just saying, hang on a sec, so if I just don't go within range of that, or don't end my turning point in range of that, I'm going to deny you a VP or potentially 2 VP. Sure, that sounds like a win to me. So just be aware that they could quite easily deny you all your TacOp points, because this is very telegraphed. So yeah, interesting one. Surveillance. Reveal. The first time for an action performs a surveillance action. Nice. What does that mean? Surveillance. The active operative has gathered surveillance. 1 AP. An operative cannot perform this action while it is an engage order, so you have to be on conceal. It must be holding your opponent's territory to perform the action, so you've got to be in your enemy's half of the board, and there must be an enemy operative that is a valid target for it. An operative cannot perform this action during the first turning point or while within control range of any operative. Firstly, when I read this, I was like, oh, it's going to be great. Your sniper can be sat at the back on conceal, shoot someone and do surveillance on someone else. No, you need to be in your opponent's territory. So you need to be moving forwards to be able to achieve this. I don't really know who wants to be doing this necessarily, but there is some potentially cool stuff that you can have with, like, say, Phobos, or like any sort of elite team, I guess, that has infiltration. Is you can do this on your counteract. So if you're already in your opponent's half and you're on conceal, you can just be like, yep, boom, sneaky little surveillance, out you go. The only downside is that, like, you're now on conceal and not killing stuff, and you could just be killing your opponent and increasing your kill grade. So I guess it's up to you. Like, do you want to try and get a higher kill grade, or do you want to try and get, like, more TacOps points? And is this easier or better than just doing implant? Like, it's kind of my take on it, right? So not too sure. The second way you can score points, though, at the end of each turning point after the first, if a friendly operative that performs a surveillance action during that turning point is in the kill zone and has a conceal order, you score 1 VP. So what this means is that you can start in your opponent's territory, do your surveillance, you can run away again, and so long as you're still alive and you're still on conceal, you're good to go. But what it means is you can't flip to engage, shoot someone, you can't, do anything like that. Like, you're kind of locked into to staying on conceal. So it's kind of cool, but, like, with all the different ways you need to score in this game, you need to be probably on objectives. You probably need to be killing stuff. Like, this is kind of like it might be detracting from what you're trying to do. Whereas, like, the alternative of having, say, like, implant feels far better. So personally, I'm going to say I think implant is the best of the infiltration TacOps, I believe. I then think that, like, wiretap has this weird mind game where you can try and force your opponent not to play a certain objective to deny you your TacOps points, but maybe that forces you higher on crit op. But there'll be dragons because they could just be scoring, like, 3 on their crit op and then 6 on their TacOps, and you've now got 0 on your crit op, on your TacOps, and 6 on your crit op, and you lose. So I don't know if that's a good idea. I'm personally not sold on it, but maybe there's a better way of playing wiretap. I guess if you can place it on a model that's already there, then you're getting at least 3, I guess. So there's that. And in surveillance, again, I'm just feeling like it's playing around the game and it's trying to be sneaky and whatever else, but I just feel like the output is you're not playing, like, the rest of the ways of scoring. So all of these are fine, like, in a sense of you can score points from them. I just don't think you're going to score that many. Implant, you're probably going to max if you want to go for it, but, like, I guess my question with infiltration is, like, at what cost, right? It's like, at what cost are you achieving all these great things? Like, has it cost you a kill grade? Has it cost you some crit up points? Has it meant that you've lost more models because you're taking more damage? Like, what is the punishment that you have taken as a result of doing this, rather than just, say, kill someone or plant a beacon or, just kill models and hold stuff down? So yeah, like, I'm not too sure. It's also the most complicated. So I would say not very beginner friendly, and not necessarily the best. So I'm just going to quickly try and summarize with these here. So I think in the elite meta that we're in, Seek and Destroy is better than Recon. So for most teams that you're going to see competitively being played, it's probably something like this. I actually think Overrun on its own is probably arguably better than a lot of these security TacOps, but each of these the whole security archetype as a whole is pretty good. Then I think it's Seek and Destroy, then I think it's Recon, then I think it's Infiltration. So that's kind of how I'm seeing it play. Again, happy to hear your thoughts and feedback. I know there is ways to be maxing TacOps here. Like, please don't think that I'm saying you're not going to score VP. I think most people are probably scoring 5 or 6 VP out of implant, which might then be their primary ops. You might be getting your sort of like full 9. I'm just thinking that you're probably losing on your kill grade as a result. I might be wrong, so let me know if you found a way to maximize these other infiltration TacOps and you don't think that's the case. But if I was a beginner and I was getting into the game, I'd say, like, focus on your, like, security to start with. That's nice and easy. if you're playing Seek and Destroy, play Overrun, the one where you need to kill models in your opponent's territory. That's nice and easy for you to achieve. If you're looking at like playing Recon, I'd say Confirm Kill might actually be a little bit of a trap. So maybe look at some of these others. Like this recover item is swingy, but you can win big. Plant Beacons is like a safe point, but it's going to cost you more APL. So just something to be aware of. And then finally, I sort of explained just then my thoughts on Infiltration. So that's my tactics overview when it comes to TacOps. There's going to be more tactics videos coming out soon, but what do you guys think of this? Is this what you're thinking as well, or have you had a different experience? What have I missed, and what tactical tips do you have for the wider community? Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you all next time.
That brings us to the end of the episode. Hopefully you found something new or useful while listening, and if you did, throwing us a like would be greatly appreciated. If you want to make sure you don't miss any episodes, make sure you hit that subscribe button and click on the bell so you get notifications as soon as the next one drops. It really is the best way to help a small channel like ours. And if you can't wait and you do want early access, we have a Patreon where you can get exclusive access to all our content ahead of time. As always, we'd love to hear your thoughts and feedback. Just drop a comment below and we'll get right to you. Thank you so much for listening. I'm your host Ryan, this has been Turning Point Tactics, and we'll see you next week.